Here is the luxury saloon by which all others are measured. This 6th generation Mercedes S-Class is more affordable to run and even cleverer to use, but its real strengths remain in comfort and refinement. Under the bonnet, buyers have the widest and most technologically advanced choice of engines in the luxury segment, with 3 kinds of hybrid powerplant to complement the usual petrol and diesel options. All LED lighting technology and a futuristic suspension option complete a groundbreaking package. Boardroom buyers must consider it. The Mercedes S-Class. It's traditionally been the sensible answer to the question every motoring writer likes to dodge. What's the best car in the world? Other vehicles can be more opulent, faster or better to drive, but over the years, no other model has so consistently delivered such a technologically advanced blend of automotive virtues. The S or Sonderklasse has served as the flagship Mercedes saloon for over 50 years in various guises, and the W222 model that we're looking at here is the 6th generation since Mercedes started officially using the S-Class tag back in 1972. This car, though, has a tougher brief than any of its predecessors. At its entry point, it must satisfy successful mid-level managers, while at the other end of the lineup, the same car with greater power and opulence must also be good enough to meet the exalted expectations of the Rolls-Royce and Bentley buyers Mercedes once tried to snare with its now discontinued Maybach brand. To achieve that, this car will have to be groundbreaking. But then the S-Class always has been. This, after all, was the luxury saloon that in 1978 pioneered anti-lock brakes. In 1981, introduced airbags, seatbelt pretensioners and traction control. And by 1992 was the first car to be built entirely free from harmful CFCs. And I could go on to talk about things like double glazing, electronic stability control and keyless entry. But I think you get the point. Models like this Mercedes are state-of-the-art test beds for the best that their engineers can produce. Some features will forever be limited to plutocratic purses, but many others will eventually filter down into the everyday mainstream. Which means that perhaps it won't be long before the more affordable vehicles most of us own completely dispense with light bulbs, or feature anticipatory suspension systems using a camera to detect and respond to irregularities in the road ahead. These features, along with industry-leading hybrid engine technology, are amongst the many things that aim to set this S-Class apart from its luxury sector rivals, the best that Jaguar, Audi, BMW and Porsche can produce. These brands produce some great cars in this segment. Better ones than this? Let's find out. Of course, there's more to this S-Class than mere novelty. The key to this car is a sense of well-being, a reassurance that you're in the most thoroughly engineered vehicle that money can buy. That starts from the moment you ease yourself behind the wheel and take in the quietly classy dashboard, sink into seats that feel as if they've been tailored to fit, and start wondering how you're ever going to learn how this massively complex Mercedes works. To give you an idea of the engineering effort that's gone into this car, consider this. A top-end rival like a Bentley Flying Spur offers you a petrol engine. Go for, say, the kind of more mainstream Jaguar XJ or BMW 7 Series that many potential buyers will be considering, and you can choose between petrol and diesel. Audi will go a step further and offer you a choice between petrol, diesel and hybrid power. Then we come to this car. It obviously offers conventional petrol and diesel choices, but that's just the start. From there, you've got a petrol-electric hybrid, a diesel-electric hybrid, or you could even order a plug-in hybrid model. 4, 6, 8, 12 cylinders, it's entirely up to you. It's a touch ironic then that almost all S-Class sales are accounted for by the most straightforward and conventionally engined variant of the lot, a 3.5 litre, 258 brake horsepower S350 BlueTech diesel model that mechanically is very little different to its 5th generation predecessor. As before, it's a car with massive pulling power, thanks to a hefty 619 Newton meters of torque, all arriving low down in the rev range at a mere 1600 RPM. You can just tickle this Mercedes about on the throttle and it feels magnificent. Hugely relaxing and rarely prompting you into anything as undignified as the need to rev up towards 3000 RPM or exercise a 0 to 62 mile an hour acceleration capability of 6.8 seconds en route to the 155 mile an hour restricted maximum that every model in the range must have. At launch, this car got a 7-speed 7G-tronic Plus automatic with a 9-speed unit under development. But either way, you'll slur imperceptibly through the ratios as the world drifts by your double-glazed windows. If you can afford a not too exorbitant price premium, the other alternative for mainstream Mercedes S-Class buyers is the hybrid option. Let's start with the diesel-electric S300 BlueTech, the first 4-cylinder S-Class. That might put you off right up front, and true enough, the 204 brake horsepower 2.2 litre unit that's borrowed from smaller E and C-Class models is a touch rougher than the bigger capacity power plants that better suit this car's station in life. Still, it's usefully boosted by a 27 brake horsepower electric motor that cuts in and out to power the car to 62 miles an hour in 7.6 seconds and help return a Fiesta frugal set of running cost figures. Personally though, I'd be more tempted by the other relatively affordable S-Class hybrid option, the S400 hybrid model that I'm trying here. This is a petrol electric power plant, a 306 brake horsepower 3.5 litre V6 boosted by the same 27 brake horsepower electric motor. So inevitably its returns aren't quite as good, but they match those and the performance of the conventional diesel and are delivered with more refinement and finesse. Look beyond the derivatives I've just mentioned and you'll need a much bigger budget. Certainly that'll be required for the astonishingly frugal but exorbitantly priced S500 plug-in hybrid variant that pairs a 329 brake horsepower petrol V6 with an electric motor that's much pokier than that used in the S300 and S400 models, putting out a useful 107 brake horsepower and vastly improving running cost returns. 94 miles to the gallon, anyone? Whilst boosting the pathetic electric-only driving range you get in the ordinary hybrid versions of under a mile to a much more usable 18-mile total. Not that you'll get close to that if you exercise your right foot and a rapid 5.5 second 0 to 62 mile an hour sprint time. To be honest, I can't make much of a case for any European buyer considering any of the conventional V8 or V12 petrol engine variants. But at the launch of this generation model, the one thing that might have tempted me towards them as a potential buyer was what Mercedes is calling magic body control. Now, it's by far the cleverest gadget you can get with this car, and at this Mark VI model's initial introduction, these top petrol versions were the only ones to get it. It uses a 6D stereo camera to read the road 15 meters ahead for bumps. When a ripple of more than 3 millimeters in the road is detected, the car calculates how long it'll take to get to it, and then the active suspension is able to make the damping harsher or softer within fractions of a second in advance for each separate wheel. Turn the system off and drive over a speed hump or a pothole and you'll feel the jolt. Turn it back on and do the same thing and you won't. The technology's that good, or at least it is in daylight hours with good visibility. Because the system's camera-based, it won't function otherwise, but doubtless the boffins in Stuttgart are working on that. Don't be too disappointed if you have to settle for an S-Class without the magic technology. The standard air-suspended setup with its sport and comfort airmatic modes is still vastly impressive in its ability to shelter you from the pockmarked mediocrity of our roads, with undulations and tarmac tears passing beneath you with hardly a murmur.
This Mark VI model can even be reasonably rewarding to drive when the going gets twisty, thanks to superb body control from a stiffer chassis, the creation of which has been aided by the way this generation version has been developed as a long wheelbase saloon first, with the short wheelbase variant spawning from it. Normally, it's the other way round. This approach has given the car around 50% greater torsional rigidity, which is something you feel when pressing on through the bends, along with the more accurate, but still rather light, direct variable ratio speed sensitive steering. Plus, the engineers have added ADS Plus adaptive damping and a torque vectoring brake system that brakes the appropriate inner rear wheel during cornering to help the car turn in with more conviction. At the end of the day though, there's only so much that can be done with 2 tons or more of automotive real estate. Better to settle back and watch the world go by in sumptuous silence. Even the least sophisticated S350 BlueTech diesel model generates just 57 decibels of cabin noise at 50 miles an hour, 4 decibels less than the Bentley Flying Spur and 3 decibels less than a Range Rover TD V8. The sheer depth of design also engenders wonderful peace of mind too. Take the way this car will be so hard to shift off its course on a blowy day, thanks to the crosswind stabilisation function included in the stability system. If you're hit by a gust on one corner of the car, this loads up the springs on the other to countersteer into the wind. Further day-to-day cleverness is evidenced by washer jets integrated into the wiper blades for more effective cleaning. Plus intelligent LED lights that adjust to the road you're on and dip themselves at night. Even the brake lights are reduced in intensity after dark or if you're stationary in traffic as a courtesy to drivers following. Just another example of Mercedes thinking long and hard about making this car better than the rest. People all around the world can recognise an S-Class right away. Its elegant design, ever an expression of luxury and the automotive grandeur of its era. With this car, Mercedes has always sought to combine progressive design with their classic elegance that extends all the way back to its roots in the 1930s. It's a heritage more evident than ever in this 6th generation model with its classic architecture and flowing silhouette, a look that may be a touch more discreet than before, but is also a little more sophisticated with its long bonnet, its flowing domed roofline and gently slanting rear end. At the front, the grille is bigger than before, the air intake's more prominent, while the styling around the advanced LED headlights and the way that the airflow is managed is just a whole lot more detailed. It's all indicative of the optimally coordinated care that's gone into all the things that you can't see, like a sleek, wind-cheating and much stiffer body shell, half of which is fashioned from lightweight aluminium. Moving back, you'll appreciate the taller and more dignified glass house, emphasising a profile that's a little more saloon and a little less coupe-like now that Mercedes has its CLS Class 4-door coupe model to fill that role, and indeed the separate S-Class coupe variant. Now, I've a long wheelbase version here, but at first glance you don't immediately realise that, for here there isn't the slightly odd elongated look that characterises long wheelbase versions of this car's competitors. That's because, unlike those rivals, it was originally designed around the longer body shape, rather than styled in shorter form then stretched. The difference shows. So you're free to simply admire the classic elegance centred in profile around this character line, what Mercedes rather awkwardly calls a dropping line, that descends discreetly from the front to a rear section where this pronounced shoulder above the back wheel gives the rear end of the car a power-packed look. Talking of wheels, these 18 inches are standard, but to me look rather undersized for the sheer enormity of this car. I'd specify 19-inch alloys instead. The rear screen cuts into the C-pillars, and the tail lights are now completely encased by the car body. Like the headlamps, these are all LED affairs, this car being the first in the world to do without a single light bulb inside and out. 35 LEDs light up these tail lamps, 56 of them are used in the headlamps, and around 300 are scattered around the cabin.
21st century lighting indeed.
Drop inside and owners of the previous generation version will notice the more spacious feel with significant amounts of extra head, elbow and shoulder room in a less cluttered cabin that's a long way removed from the button fest that many Mercedes owners are accustomed to. Smooth curves and horizontal elements give a feeling of width, solidity and elegance without compromising on ergonomics, although I have to wonder whether BMW has better rationalised the mix of buttons and on-screen menus. Ah yes, the screens. They certainly dominate this cabin. Two 12.3-inch high-resolution TFT displays that one more dismissive colleague described as looking like a couple of iPads shunted together. I actually think they look rather sleek, with wondrous graphics that make those on rival infotainment systems look very old-fashioned. The screen directly ahead of the driver performs all of the functions you'd expect from a conventional instrument cluster. Most of the other information that you'll need is to be found on the centre dash screen that delivers the bewildering functionality promised by Mercedes' command infotainment system. Now, to be fair, this isn't bad in its user-friendliness, but there's a heck of a lot of depth to it that some buyers just won't take the time to learn. Getting the specification right to coordinate the colours and textures is key when buying this car, so take your time and if in doubt, go for the conservative option. Get a bit more expressive and things can go German fashion quite quickly, which is rarely a good thing. You can't argue with the quality though. Metallized switch surfaces with pearl effect paint finishes in 3 colour shades, ornate speaker grills, grooved organ stop controls for the distinctive metal eyeball air vents, and superb attention to detail characterise a cabin trimmed in lustrous buttery leather with seats that even feature heated armrests. I'm not sure about the 2-spoke Napa leather steering wheel though, with its old-fashioned Mercedes emblem at the bottom. But the analogue clock in the middle of the dash is lovely, and at night you'll enjoy ambient lighting with a choice of no fewer than 7 different colour settings. Rear seat passengers are even better provided for, as is appropriate in a car that many owners will want chauffeur driven. They've 14mm more knee room and 9mm more shoulder room than they would have had in the old Mark V model. And of course, in the kind of long wheelbase guise that I have here, there's plenty of room to stretch out and relax. Now here I've got the executive rear package that gives you an electrically operated ventilated seat with powered side and rear window blinds for extra privacy, and a backrest adjustable by up to 43.5 degrees. Plus the rear seat comfort package that gives you a seat massage function, as well as these seat back mounted entertainment screens. They've to be operated by a fiddly remote control though, which seems a bit out of date in these days of touchscreen technology. Perhaps it's because of all this rear seat trickery. There are no fewer than 5 rear seat option packages for long wheelbase customers, that the kind of folding rear backrest you'd normally get in a luxury saloon to extend the boot space can't be offered here. So you're reliant on a 510 litre trunk that's a touch bigger than a BMW 7 Series and a touch smaller than an Audi A8 or a Jaguar XJ. It'll be quite big enough to transport the golf clubs and associated paraphernalia that most executives will cart about, and laudably isn't compromised in size by the batteries that hybrid variants like this one must have. We're looking here at the traditional S-Class saloon body style in its usual short and long wheelbase forms. So for this generation, the Stuttgart brand has also developed a sleek coupe and even a Pullman version with 6 doors and 3 rows of seats. The UK market though will be primarily interested in the familiar 4-door, with a focus on one variant in particular. 9 out of every 10 British buyers choose the least expensive S350 BlueTech diesel, priced from just under £65,000, and the only version offered here with the short wheelbase body style. Half of all buyers wanting this model will pay the £3,000 premium necessary to get it in long wheelbase form. Either way, the standard trim level is SE, but another £5,000 will get you AMG spec and a sportier look. I would though suggest that before automatically opting for the standard diesel, you take a moment to consider the merits of either of the two most affordable hybrid variants, which, like every other S-Class model that I'm going to talk about, are only offered in long wheelbase guise. Now, there's a choice of petrol electric or diesel electric, and if you can afford the necessary upfront asking prices, the balance sheet returns you'll get are as good or better than those of the base diesel. If, like most potential buyers in this segment, you're a diesel driver, you might naturally look to the diesel hybrid first, the S300 BlueTech, which will set you back around £72,000, or about £7,000 more than a comparably spec'd long wheelbase version of the ordinary S350 diesel. This hybrid model's running cost returns are tempting, but the downside is that to get them, you must downsize from the S350's 3.5 litre V6 to a 2.2 litre four-cylinder engine that isn't quite as smooth. Which is why I think I'd prefer the variant that I've been trying here, the petrol electric S400 hybrid. Priced at around £70,000, it's a little nearer the cost of a base diesel S-Class and equals that car's performance and running cost figures in even greater silence while using cheaper green pump fuel to drive a silky smooth 3.5 litre V6. I should also mention at this point that in fact 3 hybrid engines have actually been developed for this S-Class, the third being the 3 litre petrol electric V6 you'll find in the S500 plug-in hybrid model that you can talk to your dealer about. Its balance sheet returns are astonishing, and thanks to a much larger electric motor than you get in this S400, it's got more performance and can go much further on battery power alone. It is, in short, on paper at least, the ideal S-Class, or it would be were it not for an asking price that must cover all this sophisticated technology. You wouldn't have to go too mad with options on an S500 plug-in hybrid to edge up towards £100,000, so it's a variant that, for the time being, will probably be out of reach for most potential buyers. Pity. For the sake of completeness, I'll also mention the big petrol engine models that are really primarily made for the US and Middle Eastern markets. If luxury is all, a £90,000 budget gets you the 4.7 litre V8 S500, but there's a big jump from there to the V12 powered S600, for which around £140,000 is needed. Lottery winners and captains of industry wanting a sportier look and feel can opt for either the 5.5 litre V8 powered S63 AMG for around £120,000 or the 6 litre bi-turbo V12 engined S65 AMG for around £180,000. As for discussion of the value proposition all these prices represent, well, I make no apologies for concentrating primarily on rivals to the base conventional diesel variant, the S350 BlueTech, since that's the version almost all UK S-Class buyers will want, with most sales likely to be made in the £65,000 to £70,000 bracket. Now, as you might expect, this generation S-Class model does require a premium for its advanced technology. Only Porsche's Panamera diesel is comparably priced, and a TD V6 Range Rover is only about £9,000 more. Otherwise, for the entry-level S-Class, you're looking at having to find around £4,000 to £5,000 more than you would need to for comparably specified versions of rivals like Audi's A8 3-litre TDI, BMW's 730D, or Jaguar's XJ 3-litre V6 diesel. But then these competitors haven't been engineered with one eye on Bentley and Rolls-Royce customers. They don't have to aspire to be the best car in the world. Ultimately, the difference shows. Elsewhere in the S-Class lineup, direct competitors are quite hard to find. No other rival offers a diesel hybrid to match the S300 BlueTech, and at the time of this 6th generation S-Class model's launch, the only other plug-in petrol hybrid luxury saloon on the market to match the S500 plug-in variant was Porsche's much less powerful Panamera SE hybrid.
In fact, at launch, the only hybrid S-Class model with a directly comparable competitor was this S400 petrol hybrid, pitched around £3,500 above the similarly powered active hybrid version of BMW's 7 Series. So, Mercedes is now the manufacturer with the widest hybrid choice in this segment. And, as I've already suggested, it's also the brand with the widest choice of conventional petrol power plants too. There's nothing else quite like the S63 and S65 AMG models, but the tiny number of buyers looking at the S500 V8 might be tempted to save £10,000 to £15,000 and choose a BMW 750i or an Audi A8 4-litre TFSI, or find £5,000 more for a Porsche Panamera GTS. Meanwhile, company chairman looking at the V12 powered S600 can save themselves around £40,000 by opting for comparable rivals like BMW's 760i, Jaguar's 5-litre V8 Supersport, Audi's A8 W12, or even a long wheelbase 5-litre V8 supercharged Range Rover. But then this S-Class is really aimed at Rolls-Royces and Bentleys, and it says a lot for it that this is a realistic aspiration. If, having considered all of this, you conclude that it is an S-Class you really want, then you're going to need to know exactly what's included as standard and how much you're going to need to budget for options. Now, the answer in both cases is rather a lot. All models get Airmatic air suspension, metallic paint, alloy wheels of at least 18 inches in size, a rear parking camera with Parktronic active park assist sensors front and rear, auto headlamps and wipers, power folding mirrors, leather trim, electrically adjustable heated front seats, luxury automatic 2-zone climate control, ambient lighting with a choice of 7 colour settings, a lovely analogue dashboard clock, an auto-dimming rear view mirror, a multifunction Napa leather trim steering wheel and cruise control. I also like the Magic Vision Control windscreen wiper setup that jets the fluid directly out of a wiper blade that's heated to prevent snow or ice forming on it in winter. Plus, there's a super clever LED intelligent light system that adapts itself to either country roads or motorways, turns with the corners and dips itself in the face of oncoming traffic at night. You also get the Command Online system with media interface that offers Linguatronic voice control and SD card or USB compatibility. Via this setup's 12.3-inch TFT colour screen, you can use HDD hard disk satellite navigation with a 3D display, Bluetooth link your mobile phone, get live traffic information, set up a speed limiter, use Mercedes apps and get in-car internet access for Facebook, internet radio, news and weather reports and Google Map routing. Plus there are all the usual stereo functions with a DAB digital radio, a DVD player, a 10 gigabyte music register and a glorious 10 speaker setup that uses an ingenious front bass system. Now this takes the front bass speakers from their usual position in the doors and mounts them in aluminium structures in front of the footwells, which then become resonance chambers, delivering crisp concert hall standard sound, even at the faster speeds. From there you can start perusing the options list to see if there's anything that takes your fancy. If you're going to be spending plenty of time being driven, then you'll want to look at all the rear seat options. Maybe the executive rear package that gives you a reclining, electrically operated, ventilated seat with a rear window blind for extra privacy. Or maybe go the whole hog and specify the first class rear package that extends the front center console into the back of the car, reducing your S-Class to 4-seat status, but adding things like folding tables and thermo cup holders to warm or cool drinks. If you go for that, then you'll probably also want the rear seat comfort package that gives you these seat back mounted entertainment screens and a seat massage function. That same seat massage function can work in the front too, a so-called energizing system that works on what therapists call the hot stone principle. Here using 14 air cushions that function across 6 different hot or cool programs. And the perfect complement to that, maybe the optional 590 watt Burmester sound system with its 13 high performance speakers and 9-channel DSP amplifier. Or the air balance package that includes an onboard perfume atomizer and ionizer, as well as more effective air filtration. I'd also want to look at the panoramic glass roof, the night view assist package to highlight pedestrians and objects you might not have seen at night, and the neat 360-degree camera with its overhead and junction displays. As for safety equipment, well, the basics are there, of course. A pedestrian-friendly bonnet, anti-whiplash neck pro head restraints, a tyre pressure loss warning system, Isofix child seat fastenings, and the normal twin front, side and window airbags. There are more airbags too if you go for one of the rear seat options that enable you to specify the pre-safe rear package. This includes an inflatable seatbelt strap that Mercedes calls a belt bag, then a cushion bag that sits under the reclining seat cushion, and seatbelt buckle extenders that take up any slack in the belt and secure you in more firmly. All S-Class models, of course, get the usual systems for traction and braking, plus ASR acceleration skid control and ESP stability control with curved dynamic assist. There's also attention assist, which monitors your driving reactions to make sure you're not getting drowsy, crosswind assist to help in blustery conditions, and traffic sign assist, which can read traffic signs as you pass and display them on the dash. Further measures include a pre-safe anticipatory safety system with a pre-safe impulse feature that in a crash will pull front seat occupants away from the direction of impact by their seatbelts to reduce injury. The likelihood of such a crash ever happening is reduced by the fitment of collision prevention assist, which will scan the road ahead for potential nose-to-tail accidents, warning you and priming the brakes if one is detected. If you don't respond or aren't able to, the car will automatically brake itself to reduce the severity of any potentially resulting collision. The last feature I've just mentioned uses a stereo camera system mounted at the top of the windscreen. A clever piece of technology you can put to further use by selecting the optional driving assistance package that almost all S-Class buyers choose. Helped by an array of 12 ultrasonic detectors, 5 cameras and 6 radar sensors, this includes 6 key features. A pre-safe brake system that can automatically slow the car if you don't respond when a pedestrian strays into your path. Pre-safe Plus will warn you of imminent rear-end collisions and brake the car to reduce whiplash on impact. Then there's BAS Plus with cross-traffic assist, which prompts you to brake in hazardous situations and adds extra brake pressure if you're too tentative, also working at junctions and roundabouts to avoid possible collisions from the side. Active lane keeping assist will stop dozy drivers from veering out of their lanes on the highway, while active blind spot assist will stop you from dangerously pulling out to overtake in front of another driver. Cleverest of all, perhaps, is the motorway safety peace of mind you'll get from the Distronic Plus with steering assist and stop and go pilot setup. Much more than just cruise control. It'll keep your steering straight for a start and automatically maintain a safe distance to the traffic ahead, even seamlessly stopping and starting the car should you come across a tailback. You'll need the driving assistance package to be fitted if you're to specify what is probably the cleverest and most impressive optional feature you can choose for this S-Class, so-called magic body control. At the launch of this car, limited only to top petrol models, but developed for ultimate use right across the Mercedes range. Now, it's described by the Stuttgart brand as the world's first suspension system with eyes and uses road surface scan technology as you move at speeds of up to 80 miles an hour to look up to 15 meters ahead and build a picture of the road surface using that windscreen stereo camera I just mentioned. The data then goes to the ABC active body control system, then priming the standard air suspension to simply iron out road undulations as if they weren't there. Speed humps and potholes simply disappear from your everyday motoring life. It's quite astonishing. A decade ago,
The kind of progress this 6th generation S-Class has made in terms of efficiency would have sounded like a utopian dream, yet the reality is that fuel consumption and CO2 emissions have been virtually halved in that time. A class-leading drag coefficient that can be as low as 0.23 CD helps here. So do the weight savings brought about by use of aluminium in over 50% of this vehicle's construction, and the greater efficiency of Euro 6 compatible engines that across the board are about 20% more economic than those in the previous generation lineup. This figure aided by fuel-saving electronic direct steering, low rolling resistance tyres, and, as you'd expect, a start-stop system that cuts the engine when you don't need it, stuck in traffic or waiting at the lights. It's impressive that, as a result of all of that, this S-Class can set new segment running cost benchmarks, even in an entry-level S350 BlueTech model that mechanically is virtually identical to its predecessor. In standard SE form, it returns a combined fuel economy figure of 51.4 miles to the gallon and emissions of just 146 grams per kilometre for the standard length car, or 148 grams per kilometre for the long wheelbase body. That's about 5% better than a rival BMW 730D and about 10% better than a rival Audi A8 3-litre TDI or Jaguar XJ 3-litre V6 diesel. But switch to the diesel-electric S300 BlueTech Hybrid and you can really pummel competitors like these, for they've no answer to that particular model. This S-Class variant manages an impressive 61.4 miles to the gallon and 120 grams per kilometre, better than you get from a little 1.25 litre Ford Fiesta. That'll mean it'll be free to tax in the first year and only £30 a year thereafter. Even so, you'd still need to be covering a huge annual mileage to justify this diesel-electric variant's substantial price premium over the ordinary S350 BlueTech diesel. Still, S-Class hybrid motoring is undeniably tempting on paper. This petrol-electric S400 hybrid, the one I'm driving here, delivers 44.8 miles to the gallon and 147 grams per kilometre, so virtually matching the returns you get from the ordinary diesel version. But that's nothing compared to the S500 petrol-electric plug-in hybrid variant. If you can afford its upfront asking price, you're guaranteed to like pretty much everything else about it. Can you believe 94.2 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and a CO2 return of only 69 grams per kilometre from a 2-ton luxury limousine? That's what's on offer here. Plus, a much larger 107 brake horsepower electric motor means that the tiny all-electric driving range of less than a mile that you get with the S300 and S400 hybrid models is here boosted to a far more usable 18 miles. That's enough to mean that over typical commuting distances, you might almost never have to fill your S-Class up with fuel. Of course, even Mercedes engineers can't do miracles, and the big conventional V8 and V12 petrol models will drink thirstily from the green pump, even though Mercedes insists that they too are far more efficient in 6th generation form, with features like carbon fibre boot liners and weight-saving ceramic brakes. To be fair, the S500 V8 doesn't do too badly, managing 31.7 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 207 grams per kilometre of CO2, which is a 15% better showing than you'd manage in a direct, comparably powered rival like Porsche's Panamera GTS or Maserati's Quattroporte GTS V6. Once you get into lottery-winning territory, though, the running costs really will start to rack up. The V8-powered S63 AMG manages 27.9 miles to the gallon and 237 grams per kilometre. The V12 S65 AMG delivers 23.7 miles to the gallon and 279 grams per kilometre, and the V12 S600 manages 25.5 miles to the gallon and 259 grams per kilometre. What else? Well, servicing costs can be kept in check by an assist dashboard service indicator that monitors engine use and tells you exactly when maintenance is due. There's also a service care package you can take out at purchase that takes care of routine maintenance for around £40 a month, spreading the cost of regular servicing, guaranteeing the price of parts and labour for up to 4 services, and covering the cost of all recommended service items such as brake fluids, spark plugs, air filters, fuel filters and screen wash. And the comprehensive 3-year warranty is built upon by Mercedes' Mobilo scheme, which delivers breakdown cover for up to 30 years, as long as you continue to have your car serviced at a Mercedes main dealer. And residuals? Well, they look strong. In S350 BlueTech form, this S-Class should match its predecessor's 44% of original purchase price showing after 3 years. Finally, insurance groupings range between 49 and 50.
This S-Class spearheads technological development, not only for Mercedes-Benz, but for the automotive industry as a whole, and has done for decades. It's that important, and it's why this is, and will continue to be, the world's best-selling luxury car. In 6th generation form, it remains a step ahead of its luxury segment rivals, as it had to be in order to be able to compete with everything from an Audi A8 to a Bentley Continental costing 3 times as much. No other rival has as difficult or as wide-ranging a brief, but then no other car brings this one's timeless clarity and effortless superiority to such an advanced and wide-ranging portfolio of talents. It can power to supercar speeds in AMG guise, deliver nearly 100 miles to the gallon in plug-in hybrid form, and can be specified to eerily steer, power and brake itself at a cruise in whatever form you decide upon. Magic body control can even make bumps and potholes disappear, transforming the roadway into a magic carpet. No other car you could choose can do all of this, which is why this S-Class will remain a benchmark for the kind of luxury saloon every prestige brand would like to build, and a reference point for the current state of automotive technology. The best car in the world? You'll feel like it is if you buy one.